Hello, great ones. Welcome to the Live and Be Great podcast. I'm your host, Latanya Sampson McDonald. I am a life coach and a registered marriage and family therapist associate. And this podcast was created to motivate, educate, and inspire all to live and be great. On today's episode, I wanted to share with you all one of my YouTube comeback videos. Yes, I'm coming back to YouTube. On today's episode, I wanted to share another video. I know I talked about this review in the last episode as well. We need to talk about Cosby review. Trigger warning. It's a bit much, but I think you'll enjoy it. Okay? Stay tuned. Hello. My name is Latanya Sampson McDonald. I am a registered associate marriage and family therapist and a life coach. And welcome back to my channel. If you haven't yet, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel because I believe you're gonna like it here. Okay. So today's video, this video, because I've been on a roll today on my YouTube comeback. Like I promised. Deep breath. The documentary, we need to talk about Cosby. Whew, when I tell you this was traumatic, this was traumatic. And first things first, because the people who are defending Cosby and saying this is all a lie, and that's the trauma speaking. Okay, that's what I need people to understand. That's the trauma speaking for those of y'all who don't get it. Like, why would all the proof is there, right? So, let's be clear. Cosby, actually, the reason he wasn't exonerated, he was released based off of a technicality, right? A prosecutor in one of the previous trials offered him immunity if he went ahead and gave his basically confession, deposition, whatever you want to call it, legal jargon, right? And told him that if he did, it can't be used against him, right? So based off of his appeal, when he sent his appeal, they found out that the prosecutor originally gave him this deal. And because they actually did use the deposition against him, he had to be released. Okay. Feel so bad for the victims. But like I said, let's be clear. And anybody can find this information because a lot of court records, when it comes to certain cases, they're not sealed, right? And this is something that you can look up yourself. He admitted to doing these things, to drugging these women, and saw no issue with it. Okay? He admitted. Period. Some of them may have consented to take the drug. Some of them didn't, which he admitted. He said based off of his own view of the situation, he would put it in their drink. Okay, that's stuff he admitted to as well. But when you're dealing with a psychopath, okay, a narcissist, you don't have any remorse, okay, for what you do. You don't think you did anything wrong. You think it's everybody else's fault. All right. I can't, personally diagnose him because that's not unless he's in my office, I can't do that. But based off of the behavior and what he is what he has mentioned, that type of behavior, yeah, that's of a psychopath, right? Um, that's a antisocial personality type of disorder. That's a like it's just so many things. Um, but we can't I'm not going to go back and forth with whether he did it or not, because that's not really an argument, because he already admitted to doing it. There's no speculation. There's no, oh, we need to go look for proof. None of that. You don't have to do any of that because he already admitted it. And that is actually the reason why he was released, based off of the deal he was given in the beginning for admitting and being honest about what he did in these crimes. Okay. So back to the trauma part. All right. Okay. So I love how they explained the start, right? I do wish that they had the resources to go back even further as to what his childhood was like, because I think that will also help put some of the pieces together when you start to figure out, how does someone end up like this? How did they get here? At least for my therapist mind and how my mind works, and working with abusers and rapists and murderers and victims and things of that nature, with working with those populations, they tend to have similar backgrounds. Okay. 99.999% of the time, there's abuse in the childhood, whether it's normalized or not, right? Oh, there's so many things. There's so many things to unpack with this. There's so many things, but that's one of the things that I wish they would have done or would have been able to do. I don't know if he's just too old and or he has such a the people in his family are so tight-lipped, or if the people that did the documentary had access to finding out more about his childhood. I think that would have also been helpful as well. So this great performance that we do in the world, and from my experience in the Black community, the performance to, you're kind of forced to do that, right? And that stems back to slavery. You're forced to pretend. Like, women literally had babies ripped from their arms and separated from their families, men to watch their family being sold off, and did not have time to sulk and be depressed about it, or that could be your life, right? So you performed, right? This happiness. Also, if you go back to how the church was used and Christianity was used as a driving force to keep slaves, how some masters used to dress up their slaves on Sundays, right? And it was just like this spectacular type thing, and take them to church and dress them, out of the rags. This performance of, yes, I'm happy and I'm okay, because they don't know, your master don't want to see you when you put on the stuff that he wants you to flaunt and show off, how good, I could get this Negro to perform, this slave to perform. We don't want you sulking, right? So then it's like you continue on this cover up of your pain. Like, yeah, I took it all the way back there because that is part of our history, the performance, the pretend to be okay. Because if a Black person is sad or is having a bad day, everybody gets scared. It's the end of the world. You're just not allowed to do that, right? So this performance and how far we can take it, you're going to continue to see stories, and those who have been paying attention, you have been seeing the stories your whole entire life with these great performers, right? So to perform even though you're in pain, to give the sense that you are pushing through, right? That whatever happens to you is not going to knock you down. Let's get pulled up by your bootstraps type of mentality that goes back into our history. Okay. So Bill Cosby basically was excellent at showing you what he wanted you to see, how he wanted you to view him. But the nuggets that we was getting in the comedy, on the show, with the drug and the women, in his interviews, the nuggets, like you'll often get nuggets as to what the truth is if you know to look for it. If you don't know to look for it, you're not going to see it. And if that person does such a great job of pulling the wool over your eyes, okay, you're just not. So when people say, they get upset with the victims when the victims say, well, he was Bill Cosby, like he was this powerful man. I mean, people get upset when they say that about Harvey Weinstein, when Harvey Weinstein's victim says that, when Kevin Spacey's victim says that, when R. Kelly's victim say things like that, but it's the truth. Like somebody is that powerful in the world, have this image of this person, you don't want to be the one to mess it all up. And if this person is that powerful, it's like you'll be ruined. Like that's why so many people don't speak up about their abuse. Men and women don't speak up about what they go through based off of the scrutiny, based off of the social norm that we have to protect abusers, right? To sort of like, oh, you make too much money, why would you need to do that to somebody? That's not a real thing. Okay. And when you take it back to understanding what self-esteem, self-value, and trauma is and how they intertwine with each other, you can have a better understanding of why things like this happen. Okay. It's definitely indicative of, I get all these accolades and I still feel like nothing. Right? A lot of the times when you would see Bill Cosby get praise for things that he did, or a fan, would say how much they love him, it was never really a humble type of behavior. It was kind of like, yeah, blank, if you really pay attention to those, if you really pay attention to it, because it wasn't enough. It wasn't doing it. It wasn't doing it for him. And it doesn't do that for a lot of celebrities, a lot of people, I would say, in high positions that you would see commit suicide or commit certain crimes. It's because the trauma of what got you there has not been dealt with or addressed. Okay, even victims, that go back to their abusers. There are some of the women that was just like, oh, did I make a fool of myself? Because I can't remember anything. And I made a fool of myself in front of this powerful man. So they went back, right? Just like domestic violence abuse of victims go back, just like some of y'all have went back to toxic relationships, okay? When you were being brainwashed, just like some of you guys who have been severely abused and manipulated emotionally, physically, and mentally by your parents, you keep going back, right? That's where it starts. That's really the link of it, but it's not as out of this world and hard to understand as people make it out to be, right? Unless you're separating, unless you're avoiding, and you just don't want to understand. And I am empathetic towards the people who are having a hard time and looking for any type of way to avoid to have this conversation, or any type of way that they don't have to believe, or any type of way to shut this thing down. Right? Those are also the people who are doing it within their own families and have done it and have been taught to do that by their elders. Okay, to ignore this type of abuse. Uncle so-and-so got this problem, just don't put them shorts on. Those type of people. Oh, we don't talk about that, right? They doing it. They've been trained. A lot of us have been trained to do that. And that's across the board. All cultures have been trained to do that. And it's a position of power that is protected that unfortunately puts a lot of people in danger. When you ignore and you don't have these conversations, and like they mentioned in the documentary, he was a lot of people's, he was America's dad, okay? He was America's dad. And like you guys will see, we touched on this in another show that I'm part of, Unfiltered Conversations with Goddess Speaks. That's what we do. Like, it goes back to how you feel about yourself, you know? What you were taught, like if you spoke up, or if from a very young age that what you had to say didn't matter. Okay, and some of us carry that into adulthood and don't know that we have to heal that, right? There's so much. But yeah, he was America's dad. So a lot of people are having that trauma response of like finding out your actual dad. If you find out your actual dad did these things, right? They having that same response to it, and it's extremely traumatic if you don't have a way of navigating out of the darkness and removing, I would say, yourself and your value and your worth from it, right? Because it's not your fault that you believed this person. And essentially, people that felt like Cosby was their dad are victims too, right? They're victims too, not in the same way as the people that he abused, but definitely in a way that you held on to this image. And for a lot of people, it was a staple in your life as motivation, right? As love and support and kindness, and feeling like that did exist. Okay. And one of the things we said in the other show that you guys will see in the very near future is that I keep losing my train of thought. My bad. Hopefully it'll come back to me. But anyways, but that is That is what it feels like. Oh, this is what we said. We said that, okay, we had Carl Winslow, we had James Evans, right? As far as Black dads, we had, Uncle Phil and things of that nature. But the number one you're going to choose, you chose every single time, was Heathcliff Huxtable. Every single time, right? And you didn't see a vengeful type of situation. You didn't want Fred Sanford to be your dad either. You wanted Heathcliff, right? And there's a reason for that that is deeper, okay, that we must address, and that, I talked about in my other video about Janet. And when it comes to child abuse and hitting your children, even he knew, as far as this perfect image of a father, not to show kids getting hit, right? Perfection, not just perfection, but how you can raise children in love, still address concerns, still be frustrated and things of that nature with them, but still in love, right? Without this heavy fear and abuse. You see what I'm saying? Like, even he knew, okay, not to do that. But another part, which is in our culture as well, is some of the men that were on there advocating, Black men especially, they didn't believe that he did it until a Black woman said, like a Black woman that was close to them personally said that he did it to them. Why? Because we all know there is a history, Emmett Till, of white women lying on Black men. There's a history, okay? So there's a history also of distrust with the law, rightfully so, for Black people. There is, okay? But both can exist, right? Both can exist, and unfortunately, when it comes to Black people in this traumatic world that we live in, and the trauma we're still in, when it comes to this racism thing, both exist. We got abusers in our culture and outside, okay? That if you bring it all together, all of them have a history of abuse. They're starting to even go through this is a sidebar, but they even starting to go through the childhoods of the people who did the thing with the Capitol, right? They attacked the Capitol, and you're finding the most violent ones, what their childhood trauma was like: abuse, molestation, right? All of that, okay? It has something to do with why people react the way that they do, and they're constantly either super aware and have done the work to heal from it, or they become a victim or an abuser when it comes to this type of childhood trauma. But back to, it took that much, because the reason why it's taken that much is, like I said before, people really, really looked at Cosby as their hero based off of all he had done in the community. Now, after a while, you can only keep up the act for so long, and he started slipping with the interviews, okay? Started slipping with the interviews. Also, I would say he's getting older, so he's not as sharp as he used to be. That stuff starts to show, just like it did in that deposition. Okay, he completely was honest and had no remorse. So I understand for some people, it's going to take some time. It's going to take some time for them to come to grips with this. And I think the thing that would help that is uh, therapy, self-realization, empathy for the victims. That's going to help you, but mainly empathy for yourself. Start with that empathy for yourself, as to recognizing and being honest, like if it's true, even though we know it is, but if it's true, how that feels for you. Okay, because I know for me it's painful. Because that I felt like I wanted him to be my dad too. I wish that was my family, right? um and we were always like, Black people always been looking for the one. Like that's why Black Panther did did as well as it did and had the impact that it did, because we look for us, in a world that tells you that you're less than, in systems that set you up for failure, where you got to your starting is 10 steps behind you based off of something that you cannot change. Like, yeah, you're gonna hold on to anything that looks powerful and that looks great. But I think we do we do have to have the conversation and tell the truth and be honest about our trauma, because the more we're dishonest about our trauma, the more we have pretenders, the more we're getting these rappers that commit suicide or overdose on drugs. The more we have these celebrities, these actors, right? I'm talking about in any color, okay? And you hear all these traumatic stories about how they are with their wives, and domestic abuse, and child abuse, and oh, we're going to continue hearing it, right? And yes, these people are human just like we are, and you shouldn't put anybody on a pedestal. That's true. That's very, very true. But it's not impossible to have a healthy person to look up to. It isn't, because people have done it. Yes, they had to be mentally strong in order to do it, but they do exist. They do exist. And we have to do better when it comes to our entertainment industry. And I hate to say it, but yeah, a lot of our greats have a lot of pain that has never been healed. And through that pain, they birth a lot of great things. But when you find out what was behind it, it's like you take it away. Now, as far as the question, no, first of all, I also need to say that I can't imagine how his TV family is doing mentally. I know us that were fans of him are going through it, but the TV family that worked with him for years, oh my gosh, because they had to actually go through the motions of him being their father. So I can't imagine how hard it may be to come to grips with what is going on. Um, I see Felicia Rashad's response was a trauma response, period. She sitting here kissing up on this man. That was her husband, her TV husband, right? That she had chemistry with. Um, it's like you snatched that and pulled that from her. That's a lot. It's a lot, especially if that's the main thing people know you by, is being his wife and being Claire Huxtable. That's a lot. I wouldn't want to trade spots with him mentally. I just wouldn't. I wouldn't. And I hope that they get the help that they need and go to therapy, whether they want to believe it or not. I do understand their need to not believe it and to not address it, because that's a lot of mental warfare to have to go through. And it's scary, right? Not saying that they wouldn't be able to go through it, because they would, but it is a very scary thing to do it. And like I said, you got to put yourself in a position of, what if that you found out your actual parent did that? And a lot of people do have them stories. So maybe some of y'all can comment down below, like, if you found out that your actual parent, or you were a victim of it, and you've recognized that, you acknowledge that, what that was like for you, that will also help people sort of put words to what they're feeling right now, that are in denial. And rightfully so. I understand why you want to stay in that denial, because it's scary to face that type of trauma and you feel like everything was a lie, you know? Now, I wouldn't say that what you saw and the feelings that you felt when you were watching the show was a lie, because it wasn't. Like, that was genuine. It was a performance. It's a performance. That's the art. That's the art of it. It still is what it is. It's just knowing what was going on in the actual person, because we have a tendency to feel like the characters we see relate, because they play them so good, relate to the actual person, when that's not always the case. They just good actors. Okay, they're just really good actors. And like I said, that's in our DNA. Black people especially, that's in our DNA. White people, they I mean, really, all people that had to pretend to be okay and ain't really tough on emotions, ain't really tough on telling people their business, you perform, okay? If you've had to rush and clean up the house and the house was a mess because somebody was coming over, you've been taught to perform and pretend like you're okay. And that part, unfortunately, it has its consequences at the end of the day. Okay. So overall, I think it was a great documentary. Um, I applaud everybody that participated, because I know it was tough. You are not canceled by me. And I'm sure the majority of other therapists, y'all might need some therapists as well, for being brave enough. Thank you for being brave enough, because more people need to be brave enough. More individuals and families need to be more brave about addressing these things. When it comes to abuse, when it comes to violence, and I think that will help, right? I think that will help the healing process when it comes to what we don't deal with. Like, what were the reasons why you wanted him to be your father, right? That's real too. You see what I'm saying? What were you not seeing in your own households that drew you to cling to this character as a father figure? That's real, right? And that needs to be addressed. And I understand you, right? I get it. Like, you, that those feelings are very, very valid. They're very, very valid. But right is right and wrong is wrong. And I'm hoping that the victims get the help that they need. I'm hoping he gets the help that he needs while he's still breathing. Um, and I'm hoping that I'm hoping that, we can learn from this, and we start taking these truths as lessons to be learned, and that it motivates us to deal with our stuff. So you don't end up there, right? So you don't do all this work, all this work, all this work, and still feel like nothing. And I think that's what happened with Bill, because I'm sure he could have had any woman he wanted, right? Any, because of his status, okay? Because of his status, could have had anyone, but you chose, based off of your fetish and your controlling behavior and your lack of remorse for what you were doing. You chose to drug these women by your own admission, okay, in court. You chose to. So that's the problem. That's the problem, okay? It is. So that's all I got for you guys. I had to fight through this. I told myself I wanted to do this no more, but I think even if I would have waited, I probably still would have felt the same drain and frustration and sorrow in my body for what what was revealed in this documentary. So much. But live to fight another day, and I'll talk about it with my therapist. But yes, I hope this was insightful for you. And comment down below whatever your thoughts. Were you upset with what I got to say? Disagree? Whether you're, you know, whether it's something, is there something I need to expound on? I'll talk with each other. Like I said before, I asked that question, what made you cling to that character so much? Because that is real too. You know, what were you going through within your own family during that time? Did you feel misunderstood? Did you feel like you didn't have what you need from your own parents? You know, was it the comedy factor? What was it? What was it? Was he approachable, an approachable father figure? Was he just there? Because that's a real thing too. Whatever that is, comment down below. Like, share, and subscribe. And I'll see you next time. Okay? Be well. Bye. This channel will produce content that is both podcast and on-screen style. So if you're interested and you enjoyed today's show, please like, share, comment, and subscribe. See you soon. The Live and Be Great podcast will be airing every other Friday. If you have truly enjoyed this podcast, thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for giving Live and Be Great a chance. Please feel free to share, like, give a review, subscribe on whichever platform that you're listening to right now, on iTunes or Apple Podcast, Spotify, Anchor, as well as Google Play. The Live and Be Great podcast is strictly crowdfunded, so if you are interested in becoming a supporter, you can click the link in the description, or you can go to liveandbegreat.com and scroll to the bottom and donate to the Live and Be Great podcast today, so I can continue to give you good and motivational content. Thank you all for listening, and don't forget to give yourself permission to live and be great.